They were the biggest names in football, men who moved with breathtaking speed, who made defenders look helpless, who filled stadiums and made millions. At the peak of their powers, they seemed untouchable. But fame, fortune, and talent on a football field could not protect them from the choices they made off it. These are the stories of NFL stars who had everything and threw it away at the very moment their careers burned brightest. If you're new to this channel, please take a second to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support keeps us going. Now, let's get back to the video. Michael Vick. Michael Vick was one of the most exciting players the NFL had ever seen. Drafted first overall in 2001 by the Atlanta Falcons, he changed football forever. A quarterback who could pass deep and outrun everyone on the field. By 2006, he had made 3 Pro Bowls and became the first quarterback in NFL history to rush for over 1,000 yards in a single season. Defenses had no answer for him. He was a phenomenon. But in 2007, his world collapsed. Federal investigators linked Vick to a dog-fighting ring called Bad News Kennels operating out of a property in Surry County, Virginia. The news shocked fans, teammates, and the entire league. Vick pleaded guilty to federal conspiracy charges and was sentenced to 23 months in federal prison. He lost his $130 million contract, his endorsements, and his reputation almost overnight. The NFL suspended him indefinitely, and for 2 years, one of the brightest stars in sports was simply gone. When he returned in 2009, the Philadelphia Eagles took a chance on him. Many doubted he would ever play at a high level again. But in 2010, Vick silenced every critic, leading the Eagles to the playoffs, winning NFL Comeback Player of the Year, and proving that even after the lowest fall, a man can rise again. Plaxico Burress. Plaxico Burress is that man who sealed one of the biggest upsets in Super Bowl history. In 2008, he was at the very top of his game, a Super Bowl hero with the New York Giants. But one late night in Manhattan changed everything. Not from a tackle or a fall, but from his own gun. Burress was drafted 8th overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2000. At 6'5", he was a nightmare for defenders, strong, fast, and virtually unstoppable in the red zone. But it was in New York where he made history. In Super Bowl 42, with just 35 seconds remaining, Burress hauled in the game-winning touchdown to defeat the previously unbeaten 18-0 New England Patriots. That moment made him a champion and a legend. Only months later, on November 29, 2008, Burress was in a nightclub in Manhattan when a loaded Glock tucked into his waistband discharged. The bullet struck his own thigh. No one else was hurt, but under New York's strict gun laws, carrying an unlicensed firearm was a felony. Burress was arrested and charged with criminal possession of a weapon. He later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. The NFL star who once stood on top of the world was now behind bars, not for violence against others, but for a moment of carelessness that cost him nearly everything. After serving his time, Burress returned in 2011 with the New York Jets. He scored 8 touchdowns that season, proving his talent had never left. But his prime had passed. The momentum was gone, and he never reached his old form again. Ray Rice. Ray Rice was once a powerhouse running back for the Baltimore Ravens. Standing just 5'8", he was feared by defenders across the entire league. A 3-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl 47 champion, and one of the most consistent rushers in football. By 2013, he had surpassed 6,000 rushing yards and helped deliver Baltimore its biggest prize. He was a hero until one moment changed everything. In February 2014, Rice and his then-fiancée Janae Palmer were involved in an altercation at an Atlantic City casino. Security footage later showed Rice striking her inside an elevator, leaving her unconscious. Both were arrested, but the shocking video that surfaced months later would end Rice's career overnight. At first, the NFL suspended Rice for just 2 games, a decision that caused outrage across the country. But when TMZ released the full elevator video in September 2014, everything changed instantly. The Baltimore Ravens terminated his contract, and the NFL suspended him indefinitely on the very same day. Just like that, the man who once carried a franchise lost everything. Sponsors dropped him. His reputation vanished. And though Rice later won an appeal to be reinstated, no NFL team ever signed him again. Rice publicly apologized, completed counseling, and began working to raise awareness about domestic violence prevention. His story became a turning point in how the league addressed such issues, a legacy he never asked for, but one he has since tried to carry with purpose. By the way, I will be posting a lot more interesting videos on this channel. I would greatly appreciate your support. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson is a name that once meant power, speed, and absolute greatness. From a moment he entered the NFL in 2007, he was unstoppable. The rookie who ran through defenders with pure force, racking up over 1,300 yards right out of the gate and earning Offensive Rookie of the Year. By 2012, Peterson did the near impossible, rushing for 2,097 yards, just 8 short of the all-time single-season record, less than a year after tearing both his ACL and MCL. That comeback made him the league MVP and the living face of determination. But 2014 marked a very different kind of chapter. At the peak of his career with the Minnesota Vikings, Peterson was indicted in Texas for reckless or negligent injury to a child. He admitted to using a switch, a tree branch, to discipline his 4-year-old son. The photographs of the child's injuries shocked the nation and split public opinion sharply. Some defended Peterson, framing it as cultural discipline. Others called it what the legal system called it, abuse. Sponsors backed away. The NFL placed him on the commissioner's exempt list, keeping him off the field while the legal battle unfolded. In November 2014, Peterson pleaded no contest to misdemeanor reckless assault. He avoided jail time, but was suspended without pay for the remainder of the season. When he returned in 2015, he reminded the whole league exactly who he was, leading it again with 1,485 rushing yards and earning yet another All-Pro honor. But the stain of those charges never fully disappeared. Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy was one of the NFL's most physically dominant defensive players. In 2013, he delivered an incredible season, 15 sacks, a Pro Bowl selection, and a reputation that made offensive coordinators lose sleep. On the field, Hardy was a force of nature. Known by the nickname the Kraken, he used his raw strength and burst of speed to make life miserable for opposing quarterbacks. Fans admired his talent. Many genuinely believed he was unstoppable. But in May 2014, Hardy's life changed in a serious and deeply troubling way. He was arrested for assaulting his then-girlfriend, Nicole Holder. Reports described a violent encounter. She had been thrown onto a couch covered in assault rifles, strangled, and threatened. Hardy was initially convicted in a bench trial. He appealed, and the case was ultimately dropped when Holder stopped cooperating with prosecutors after reportedly reaching a civil settlement with Hardy. Even though the legal process moved on, the incident permanently damaged Hardy's career and reputation. The NFL suspended him for 10 games, later reduced to 4 on appeal. The Carolina Panthers deactivated him, and he never played another game for the franchise. After sitting out a season, the Dallas Cowboys signed him. His return brought a firestorm of controversy, and his on-field performance never matched the expectations that once surrounded him. In 2016, Hardy was arrested again, this time for cocaine possession. He later pursued a career in mixed martial arts, but his troubled past continued to follow him. In 2025, he faced yet another arrest, accused of assaulting a family member, a reminder that the consequences of the choices made off the field can stretch far beyond the final whistle. Adam Pac-Man Jones. In 2005, the NFL welcomed a new star, Adam Pac-Man Jones, drafted 6th overall by the Tennessee Titans. His speed and agility electrified the field from the very first snap. Jones earned a Pro Bowl selection in his rookie year, showcasing the kind of talent that only comes along once in a generation. But off the field, his life was far more complicated. In July 2005, just before training camp, Jones was arrested on charges of assault and felony vandalism stemming from a nightclub altercation in Nashville. Those charges were dismissed less than a year later. In February 2006, he was arrested in Fayetteville, Georgia, on charges of marijuana possession and obstruction of justice. That drug charge was dismissed in January 2007. Then, in February 2007, Jones was involved in a shooting incident at a Las Vegas nightclub during NBA All-Star Weekend that left a man paralyzed, an event that would define the darkest chapter of his story. That same year, the NFL suspended Jones for the entire season due to his pattern of repeated legal issues. The Titans traded him to the Dallas Cowboys in 2008, but his tenure there was brief. Jones later found real stability with the Cincinnati Bengals, earning first-team All-Pro honors in 2014 and making the Pro Bowl the following season. He had seemingly turned a corner. But in 2025, Jones was charged with a misdemeanor for leaving the scene of an accident in Albuquerque, New Mexico, proof that old patterns could be the hardest to break. Chris Henry. Chris Henry was a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, drafted in 2005. He was known for his imposing size, extraordinary speed, and the kind of playmaking ability that could change a game in a single moment. On the football field, Henry made defenders look helpless, catching passes with precision and power that left fans on their feet. Every time he found the end zone, the stadium erupted. He had the kind of talent that made people believe his career would be long, decorated, and full of unforgettable moments. In 5 seasons, Henry recorded 119 catches for 1,826 yards and 21 touchdowns. He was a rising star, and everyone expected his future to be very bright. But off the field, things were far harder. Between 2005 and 2008, Henry faced a string of legal problems: gun charges, DUI arrests, probation violations, and assault allegations. Each incident brought suspensions and uncertainty, and eventually the Bengals released him. Even through all of it, his ability on the field was never in doubt. Fans watched every game, knowing they were seeing only a fraction of what he was truly capable of. Tragically, in December 2009, at just 26 years old, Chris Henry died after falling from the back of a pickup truck during a domestic dispute. His life and career ended far too soon. What remains is the memory of a player who, at his best, was electric, and a story that serves as one of the most heartbreaking what-ifs in NFL history. Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was once one of the NFL's brightest young stars, and one of its most tragic stories. Drafted by the New England Patriots in 2010 as a 4th-round pick out of the University of Florida, where he had been named an All-American tight end, Hernandez quickly proved he was something special in New England. Explosive, athletic, and nearly impossible to cover, he was unlike any tight in the game had seen. By 2011, Hernandez had recorded 79 catches for 910 yards and 7 touchdowns, helping the Patriots reach Super Bowl 46. He was just 22 years old, signed to a 5-year, $40 million contract extension, and poised for what everyone believed would be a legendary career. He was going to be a franchise cornerstone. But in June 2013, everything shattered. Police arrived at his North Attleboro home following the murder of Odin Lloyd, a semi-professional football player who had been dating Hernandez's fiancée's sister. Within days, Hernandez was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The evidence, surveillance footage, shell casings, phone records, and text messages, was overwhelming. The NFL world stood completely still. How could a player with so much talent and so much ahead of him throw it all away? In April 2015, a jury found Hernandez guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, while later acquitted in a separate double murder case. His life ended in April 2017 when he was found dead in his prison cell at just 27 years old. The full truth of his story may never be known, but the tragedy of what was lost and what was taken will never be forgotten. Dante Stallworth. Dante Stallworth arrived in the NFL in 2002, drafted 13th overall by the New Orleans Saints, and everyone who watched him could see a career full of promise ahead. His speed, his crisp route running, and his sure hands made him a genuine weapon for any offense. Over 10 seasons, Stallworth suited up for several teams: the Saints, the Eagles, the Patriots, and others, accumulating 321 catches for 4,837 yards and 35 touchdowns. Every time he streaked down the field, he brought something special to the game. But in 2009, one night changed everything. On March 14th, while driving in Miami Beach under the influence of alcohol, Stallworth struck and killed 59-year-old Mario Reyes, a construction worker who was crossing the street. His blood alcohol content was measured at 0.126, well above the legal limit. Stallworth pulled over, called 911, and cooperated fully with authorities. Those facts mattered in the courtroom, but they could not undo what had happened. Stallworth pleaded guilty to DUI manslaughter. He was sentenced to 30 days in jail, 1,000 hours of community service, 2 years of house arrest, and 8 years of probation. His driver's license was permanently revoked. The NFL suspended him for the entire 2009 season for violating its personal conduct policy. A civil settlement was reached with Mario Reyes's family. When Stallworth returned to football in 2010, his career was never quite the same. Some stains simply cannot be washed away. Ray Carruth. Ray Carruth was a rising star in the NFL, drafted in the first round by the Carolina Panthers in 1997. Fast, skilled, and full of potential, he dazzled fans and scouts alike with his ability to get open and make big plays. He earned a spot on the PFWA All-Rookie team in his first season. Before the NFL, Carruth had dominated at the University of Colorado, earning first-team All-American honors in 1996. A bright future seemed guaranteed. But in November 1999, that future took a horrifying and irreversible turn. On the night of November 16th, Cherika Adams, who was 8 months pregnant with Carruth's child, was shot multiple times while driving in Charlotte, North Carolina. She survived long enough to call 911 and, before losing consciousness, name Ray Carruth as the person responsible. Adams died in December 1999. Carruth was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder, shooting into an occupied vehicle, and using an instrument to destroy an unborn child. The crime stunned the sports world. In 2001, Carruth was convicted and sentenced to 18 to 24 years in prison. He served nearly 19 years before being released in 2018. The child Carruth had tried to harm, Chancellor Lee Adams, survived but was born with cerebral palsy and permanent brain damage. Chancellor is now cared for by Cherika's mother, and his story has become one of remarkable resilience in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Leonard Little. In 1998, Leonard Little quickly became one of the most exciting young players in the NFL, a strong, relentless defensive end for the St. Louis Rams who had a gift for chasing down quarterbacks and disrupting big plays. Everyone who watched him believed a brilliant future was ahead. But one night cost him almost everything. After celebrating his 24th birthday with friends and family, Little got behind the wheel of his SUV and drove into St. Louis. He ran a red light and crashed into another car. Susan Gutweiler, a 47-year-old woman, died as a result. It was a senseless, preventable tragedy. Little was charged with involuntary manslaughter. He admitted fault and pleaded guilty. The court sentenced him to 4 years of probation and 1,000 hours of community service. The NFL suspended him for 8 games. The weight of what happened never fully left him, and for many, it never should. What followed was complicated. Little returned to football and, over 12 seasons with the Rams, compiled an impressive 87.5 career sacks and helped the franchise win Super Bowl 34. In 2004, he was arrested again for DUI, a development that many found unconscionable given how his first offense had ended. Leonard Little's story is one of second chances that not everyone believes were deserved, and of a victim whose life deserved far more than a footnote. Josh Brown. For years, Josh Brown built his reputation as one of the NFL's most reliable kickers. Drafted in 2003, he went on to play 14 seasons across multiple teams: the Seattle Seahawks, St. Louis Rams, Cincinnati Bengals, and New York Giants. He was precise, composed under pressure, and the kind of steady presence that every team covets. In 2015, his career reached its peak when he was selected to the Pro Bowl after connecting on 30 of 32 field goal attempts. On the field, supporters trusted him completely. But off the field, a deeply troubling pattern was developing. In May 2015, Brown was arrested on a domestic violence charge. The charge was later dropped, but police reports documented a history of incidents. Personal journals later surfaced in which Brown himself admitted to abusing his wife, physically and emotionally, over the course of several years. The NFL investigated and suspended Brown for just one game. The punishment was widely condemned as woefully inadequate. The New York Giants were criticized for continuing to employ him despite the evidence. After sustained public pressure and a second review by the league, the Giants finally released Brown in October 2016. His name has since become part of a broader, ongoing conversation about how seriously the NFL takes domestic violence and whether its punishments ever truly match its stated values. Tyreek Hill, remembered for lightning-fast moves and game-changing ability unlike almost anyone in football history. In 2014, as a sophomore at Oklahoma State, he was a rising star, racking up over 1,900 all-purpose yards and earning all Big 12 honors. But just days after a dazzling 92-yard punt return against rival Oklahoma, Hill's world came crashing down. He was arrested for domestic abuse by strangulation, accused of assaulting his pregnant girlfriend. The university acted swiftly, dismissing him from both the football program and the track team. The charges were serious, felony-level offenses that would derail most athletes permanently. Hill pleaded guilty and received 3 years of probation, mandatory anger management, and a batterer's intervention program. His future in football seemed genuinely uncertain. But Hill was not done. He enrolled at the University of West Alabama, where he showcased his extraordinary talents once more and impressed NFL scouts with his speed and playmaking instincts. In 2016, against considerable odds, the Kansas City Chiefs selected Hill in the 5th round of the draft. It was a controversial choice. It was also one that paid off enormously. Hill became one of the most electrifying offensive players in the league, earning 6 Pro Bowl selections and helping lead Kansas City to a Super Bowl victory. In 2022, he joined the Miami Dolphins and continued to dominate. His story remains one of the most complex in modern football, talent and redemption, but with questions that have never fully gone away. Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel was more than just a college quarterback. He was a true phenomenon, known simply as Johnny Football. He brought a level of excitement and electricity to Texas A&M that the program had never experienced. He led the team to a shocking victory over top-ranked Alabama and made history by becoming the first freshman ever to win the Heisman Trophy, the most prestigious individual award in college football. Fans everywhere cheered for his impossible throws, his improvised scrambles, and his bold, fearless style. He was the most talked-about player in the country. But not all of the attention was good. Just weeks before he won the Heisman, in June 2012, Manziel was arrested in College Station on charges of disorderly conduct, fighting, and using a fake ID. Even as a star on the rise, trouble seemed to find him. He bounced back and led Texas A&M to a 10-win season, but off-field issues kept accumulating like debt. The Cleveland Browns selected him 22nd overall in the 2014 NFL Draft. And for a brief moment, it seemed like the stage might be big enough to absorb his chaos. It was not. In November 2015, he was involved in a confrontation at a Cleveland hotel. In January 2016, his ex-girlfriend accused him of assault. The Browns released him shortly after. He was just 23 years old. What should have been the beginning of a long NFL career was already over. Manziel has since spoken openly about his struggles with alcohol and mental health. A reminder that sometimes the brightest flames burn out the fastest. Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon was gifted with a rare combination of size, speed, and natural catching ability that made him virtually impossible to cover when he was healthy and locked in. When the Cleveland Browns selected him in the 2012 supplemental draft, it became clear almost immediately that they had found something exceptional. He was not just another receiver. He was someone who could alter the outcome of any game with a single play. In 2013, Gordon led the entire NFL with 1,646 receiving yards, an achievement that earned him a Pro Bowl selection and cemented his reputation as one of the most dangerous pass catchers in the game. That same year, he set a Browns franchise record with 261 receiving yards in a single game against Jacksonville. On the field, he seemed to exist on a different plane from everyone else. But off the field, life was a constant battle. In July 2014, Gordon was arrested in Raleigh, North Carolina for driving while impaired with a blood alcohol content of 0.09. It was the beginning of a long, painful struggle with substance abuse that would come to define his career more than any touchdown ever did. In 2015, he was suspended indefinitely for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. Despite multiple attempts to return and flashes of his old brilliance with the Patriots and other teams, Gordon faced suspension after suspension and eventually stepped away from football to focus on his health and recovery. His story is not finished, but it is impossible to watch without mourning what might have been. Aldon Smith. Aldon Smith was a nightmare for quarterbacks. When the San Francisco 49ers drafted him in 2011, he became one of the most exciting young defenders in the entire league almost immediately. His combination of speed, power, and pass-rushing instincts made him a player that no offensive line could neutralize. By just his second NFL season, Smith had set a rookie record with an astonishing 19.5 sacks, earned All-Pro honors, and been selected for the Pro Bowl. On the field, he looked genuinely unstoppable. But the problems off the field began to accumulate with frightening speed. In January 2012 in Miami Beach, Smith was arrested for DUI. He later completed a diversion program and the charges were reduced. In June 2012, a party at his home in Santa Clara turned violent. Shots were fired, 2 people were wounded, and Smith himself was stabbed. He later faced felony assault weapons charges and pleaded no contest. In April 2014 at Los Angeles International Airport, he allegedly claimed he had a bomb. The charges were dropped, but his reputation took another serious hit. In August 2015, he was arrested for hit and run, DUI, and vandalism. The 49ers released him the following morning. Brief stints with the Oakland Raiders and Dallas Cowboys could not reverse the pattern. Further arrests in 2017 and 2018 kept Smith in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. The NFL banned him multiple times. A talent that once looked historic left the league, having never come close to reaching its potential. Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown once hailed without argument as the NFL's premier wide receiver. His accolades were undeniable. Over 12,000 receiving yards, 7 Pro Bowl selections, and a Super Bowl victory with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2021 that placed him firmly among the all-time greats. He was as gifted a receiver as the game had produced in a generation. But in January 2020, a deeply disturbing incident outside his Florida home marked the beginning of a descent that would shock even those already familiar with his volatile behavior. Brown and his trainer were accused of assaulting a moving truck driver over a payment dispute. Brown allegedly threw a rock at the truck, then forcibly entered the driver's cab and struck the driver, causing visible injuries. Facing felony burglary with battery charges, Brown pleaded no contest. He was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 100 hours of community service, anger management counseling, and a psychological evaluation. Later that year, during a game against the New York Jets, Brown's behavior grew impossible to ignore. Mid-game, he stripped off his jersey and shoulder pads, waved to the crowd, and walked off the field. The Buccaneers released him shortly after. In May 2025, Brown's legal situation escalated dramatically. He was charged with attempted murder after allegedly firing shots at a man during a celebrity boxing event in Miami's Little Haiti neighborhood. Surveillance footage and witness statements led to an arrest warrant. Brown denied the allegations, claiming he had been attacked and that media coverage misrepresented the events entirely. As of now, he remains a fugitive, reportedly overseas, a once unparalleled talent now defined by chaos. Darren Sharper. In the world of the NFL, few names commanded respect like Darren Sharper. a two-time All-Pro safety celebrated for his 63 career interceptions and his pivotal role in the New Orleans Saints Super Bowl 44 victory. He was regarded as one of the most intelligent and instinctive defensive backs of his era. Sharper's career had begun with real promise. Drafted by the Green Bay Packers in 1997, he quickly became a defensive powerhouse. His feel for the game, his anticipation, and his ability to make plays in crucial moments earned him 5 Pro Bowl selections and the reputation of a future Hall of Famer. He was the kind of player coaches built defenses around. But in early 2014, the narrative shifted in the most horrifying way imaginable. Sharper was arrested in Los Angeles on charges of drugging and raping 2 women. As investigators dug deeper, more victims came forward across 4 states: California, Arizona, Nevada, and Louisiana. The scope of what had been happening behind closed doors was staggering. In 2015, Sharper pleaded guilty or no contest to multiple charges, admitting to drugging and sexually assaulting at least 16 women. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. At his sentencing, one victim looked directly at him and told him to go to hell. Her words said everything that needed to be said. The trophies, the interceptions, the Super Bowl ring, none of it meant anything anymore. What Darren Sharper did to those women is his legacy now. Jonathan Dwyer. Jonathan Dwyer was once a promising running back for the Arizona Cardinals, a physical, hard-charging ball carrier who had earned respect across the league for his ability to move the chains and punish defenders. Drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2010, he announced himself early with a memorable 40-yard touchdown run against the Denver Broncos in his rookie season. By 2012, he had eclipsed 600 rushing yards in a single season and established himself as a legitimate contributor. But in September 2014, Dwyer's career took a devastating turn. He was arrested on charges of aggravated assault involving his wife and their 18-month-old child. According to police reports, Dwyer head-butted his wife with enough force to break her nose. The following day, he struck her again during another confrontation. In a separate moment, a shoe thrown in anger struck their toddler son. The details painted a profoundly disturbing picture of the environment inside that home. The Arizona Cardinals acted immediately, deactivating Dwyer from all team activities. He was released on bail, but placed under electronic monitoring and barred from contacting the victims. The incident occurred during a period of intense scrutiny of the NFL's handling of domestic violence cases. Rice, Peterson, Hardy, all within the same year. And it contributed to mounting pressure on the league to take a harder look at its own policies. In January 2015, Dwyer pleaded guilty to misdemeanor disorderly conduct and received 18 months of probation and community service. His NFL career ended without another snap. Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall arrived in the NFL in 2006, drafted by the Denver Broncos and destined, it seemed, for greatness. At 6'4" and 230 pounds, his physical presence on the field was matched only by his productivity. Over 1,000 receiving yards in multiple seasons, and 5 Pro Bowl selections across a career that spanned 13 seasons. He was one of the most physically imposing receivers the game had ever seen. But beneath the helmet, Marshall's journey was turbulent. In October 2007, just hours after a victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was arrested in Denver for driving under the influence. His blood alcohol level was 0.116, well above the legal limit. He pleaded guilty to a reduced charge, served probation, and moved on. Then in March 2008 came more troubling news. Marshall was arrested in Atlanta on misdemeanor battery charges following an alleged altercation with his then-girlfriend. That case was later dropped. Marshall has been consistent in denying the most serious allegations against him, and he has been equally consistent in acknowledging his personal struggles, including a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, a condition he sought treatment for and ultimately spoke about publicly with real courage. He became one of the NFL's most prominent mental health advocates, using his platform to reduce the stigma that had long surrounded mental illness in professional sports. His talent never faded. After a trade to the Miami Dolphins in 2010, he continued to produce at an elite level. Over the full arc of his career, Marshall amassed over 12,000 receiving yards and 83 touchdowns, earning 6 Pro Bowl selections. He is remembered both for what he achieved and for the grace with which he confronted what he had to overcome. From Michael Vick's fall and hard-fought redemption to Aaron Hernandez's shocking and irreversible downfall, from Plaxico Burress's fateful night in Manhattan to Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson's career-defining moments, these NFL stars remind us that talent can take a man to the very top. But choices determine whether he stays there. Some rose again, some never recovered, and some left behind legacies forever marked by the worst decisions of their lives. The game of football creates icons. It does not create immunity. If you enjoyed this video, there are many more on the channel just like it. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments which part of today's case hit you the hardest. It means everything. Thank you very much.